How do we hold people accountable for what they say online without canceling them?
Now, let me understand. So there's a famous cartoon from like 20 years ago. You know, the husband's at the computer, the wife's in bed, and she says, honey, come to bed. And he says, I can't. Somebody's wrong on the internet. And so my question is, why do you have to hold people accountable? What I mean is this. Life is full of people who annoy you. You can read Buddha, you can read Marcus Aurelius. It's always been this way. Once we moved online, the number that can potentially annoy you is 1,000 times larger. The Buddhists and the Stoics urged us always, don't try to remove all the pins from the world. The world is always full of pins, always full of annoyances. You have to learn how to live in such a world. And the more diversity we have, the more misunderstandings there are. The more we're exposed to people who are different, the more this is going to happen. And so the very idea that if someone says something that's offensive, something must be done. We must do something. Someone must do something. And since universities responded by saying, okay, we'll give you a bias response team. You call it in, we'll take care of it. This is part of why we're all afraid of each other. So of course people say heinous things on the internet. That's the nature of the internet. And so I would disagree with the premise that we need to hold people accountable. I think we need to understand this is our fate forever. We're locked together in a world full of people saying things that annoy us. So I'll stop there.
I'm probably less concerned about one-offs. And I would say that I don't mind the idea of people saying, I disagree with that, or I find that offensive, here's why. And using that as a teachable moment, right? And I think you can have that kind of discourse. When it starts to bleed into doxing, when it starts to bleeding into malicious behavior that actually doesn't allow somebody to learn from their mistakes, then I think that that's where the problem is. Now, if somebody has a pattern of behavior where they just keep on doing it, right, then I don't have any sympathy for you. And if there are dire consequences professionally for you from that, then you did that to yourself. And then also, I think it's also important that if you are in a position of power or influence, and we can use sort of this pattern of behavior as evidence of the fact that you're abusing your power, I think that that's also a way for you to be held accountable. What I do have a problem with is when people make mistakes and they're genuinely sorry and learning from it, and you don't want to give them the grace to do that. And this is where sort of the Christian sort of idea of forgiveness comes in, right? And it's really important. So if we're going to be that judgy on people, remember, you get judged the same way, right? And you would also want the same type of, you want people to afford you that same measure of grace, so you might want to think about extending it to other people and allowing them the opportunity to learn. And I think it extends back to, in some instances, not all, digging up stuff that's years and years and years old. So you said something horrible when you were 14, and now you're running for student council president, and now we're going to hold it against you. It's like, yeah, I like to think that somebody at 21 is a lot different than they are at 14. Now, if everything that they've said since then sort of confirms that they still think the same way and it's problematic, then I think you have a right to say that, and you've got a mountain of evidence to prove it. But that's an entirely different situation than somebody making a mistake once and then, being able to learn from it. We need to give everybody sort of the grace to grow and to change.